everyone. Welcome to this week's Karma Cards. I have some good news for you. On April 7th, Mercury moved direct. So we are no longer under Mercury retrograde. Yes, this final period of time, probably between Monday the 7th through the next Monday, which I want to say is the 14th, is the shadow period of Mercury retrograde. So we're going to be there for a little bit, but things are wrapping up and starting to move forward. And we have our first full moon since the eclipses coming up on Saturday, April 12th. And that's when Venus starts moving direct. So we're going to be in full forward momentum starting from about the 12th of April onward. And it just keeps picking up more steam. So things are going to start feeling like they're finally moving in the direction that we desire them to move in. Our periods of reflection are wrapping up and coming to an end. And it's really a what did you learn? What did you understand that you value in relationships when it comes to Venus? And what are the loose ends that need to be connected so that you can more efficiently move forward when it comes to Mercury? Now, the full moon that's coming up on April 12th is the full moon in Libra. And whenever we have the full moon here, the emphasis is on relationships. And so there's this double emphasis on what do you need to understand about relationships on April 12th with the full moon in Libra, which is ruled by Venus, and Venus retrograde moving direct. There is this sort of culmination point of understanding you in relationship. What do you value in a relationship with yourself, in a relationship to what you desire to create, what you desire to have, including your money. And so it's getting clear on those things. But the way that the moon is working with harder planets like Mars and Pluto implies that one of the areas we need to look at when it comes to relationships is how do we handle conflict? And this reminds me of something I learned in the past few years when it comes to conflict. For myself, one of the things that I came to understand, and this was a hard one for me to admit, that's why it took so long, but what I had come to understand was that when I was in conflict with someone, it wasn't really working to resolve the conflict or get to the win-win. I am now, but back then, not so much. I was in it to win the battle. So whenever I'd come to a conflict, I'd come with my proverbial sword and I'm ready to fight. So there's just sort of an inner warrior in me that definitely comes out when it would come to conflict, and it would be more about the need to conquer, to right an injustice rather than to find the compromise or find the win-win or create the bridge. I was more about burning the bridge than I was about creating the bridge. It's hard to admit that because of course that's not how I see myself. But then when we are looking at ourselves deeply through these periods, when we are offered reflection windows like a Mercury retrograde or like a Venus retrograde, we're asked to see ourselves perhaps not in our best light. And when we're willing to look and see what's going on, see where, what I learned about that is that I hated how I felt after being in conflict with someone because I felt both in pain and I also felt like I caused pain. And so being able to look at what do I come to the table with when it comes to conflict, I learned that I came to the table to win or to conquer rather than to communicate or to hear or to listen, right? And once I recognized that, it made a world of difference. It got me, it's not something like you don't switch on a dime. People don't switch that quickly. But what it did was it taught me to look at myself, not just in the ideal way that I see myself, but also like, okay, when your back's up against the wall, when you're in that nitty gritty space, how are you behaving? And it helped me to see it, which allowed me to adjust and change my behavior over time. There is a part of me that will always want to fight. I will always want to be Xena warrior princess. It's just part of what makes me me. But now I understand that that is not always in service to me and not every conflict requires that level of warrior energy. I hope that makes sense. But I share it with you to illustrate how this period could show that to you. Maybe you're similar to me. Maybe you have that warrior instinct, or maybe you are completely different. But this is the period of time where seeing that will be helpful to you and help you realize that if you feel like when it comes to relationship, or maybe certain relationships, that there's an energy that you're bringing that's either helping you or hindering you. And it can be an energy that's helpful in other ways, but doesn't work here. And that's what I see coming up for this particular full moon. By the way, if you want help working with the full moon energy about releasing any pattern you might find when it comes to your relationships or how you relate even just to conflict, this is something we'll be working on in the full moon spirit circle happening on Saturday, April 12th. The link is in the description below. You can join us, go through the process, go through some psychic Q&A and channeling with the Arcturians and the Sirians. And if that sounds exciting to you, I would love to have you join us. The link is there below. It is a live session and you receive the recording to keep. So if you're interested, I'd love to have you. All right, before we go into the message for the team, I just want to throw out there were some like sunspots that are now becoming Earth facing. This I was notified through the Space Weather app that was happening, and we'd be feeling it by the end of the week. So by the time you're seeing these karma cards, we're going to be feeling that energy. So I'm on the other side of it. This is Wednesday, the 9th that I'm recording this, and we're going to see probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is when we're really going to start feeling the effects of these Earth facing sunspots. And that just means more photonic energy. And I don't know, my guess is if you're tired now, I'm not sure what the end of the weekend's going to feel like. I mean, I already feel like I'm kind of doing that whole in and out, like half awake all the time feeling, even though it's like I'm awake and I keep going. I just don't have the level of energy that I know I can have. And it doesn't matter if I hydrate or exercise or have protein. It's like there's nothing you can do to sort of stimulate the energy right now, at least for me. Maybe for you it's a little different, but what I'm seeing, and from talking to clients and people, I'm seeing that there is just a lot of exhaustion, and I suspect it will increase. So if you're watching this on the other side of Wednesday, let me know in the comments, did I get it right? Are you feeling more exhausted, or is it hitting you in a different way and you just got this rampage of energy? It'd really be interesting to know. I like to do that sort of dipstick of what's going on for everyone and just see what the levels are. I find it easier to deal with if other people recognize it and are going through it too. It just makes it easier to know it's not just you. We're all feeling it. And it's intense, this energy. So let me know in the comments. All right, so the message from the team this week is really about how you are, since we are sort of on a power saving mode when it comes to energy, because we are going through this intense transformation in energy. It is intense and it is picking up in that intensity. And what I mean by that, in case you're sort of new to this conversation, is that we're undergoing a molecular change at the cellular level. We are changing over. We are activating strands of DNA that have been dormant for a while. It's like this whole other version of you is coming forward. And our cells do change over. What is it? A full changeover in a year? Is it a year or 7 years? Let me know in the comments if you know that answer. I can't remember at this moment, but imagine that now speeding up and doubling up. So if it turns over in a year, imagine it turning over in 6 months. And if it turns over in 7 years, then it's turning over somewhere closer to a year. We are going through a cellular transformation so quickly. It's why we're tired. It's why hydration is so important, because our cells are just spinning through this energy so quickly. And we're being dosed with tons of photons, so much solar radiation. And again, this radiation is a positive, transformative type of radiation, not a negative radiation. So you don't have to worry about it in the sense like that there's going to be some negative benefit. It's actually quite positive. What it's doing to our cells is it's literally filling them with more light. We are making a changeover from a denser carbon being to a more vibrant crystalline plasma being. And it's hard for us to sort of picture that because we can't see it happening. There are little ways that you can see it, or at least you can sense it. Your extrasensory abilities are picking up more. Like I said, telepathy is something that really starts to increase, which is why I'm practicing it with people over on Insight Timer. That's something that I do every month. I do 1 or 2 sessions of these practices, helping people just feel into their extrasensory abilities. You can even see, if you were to look closely at the skin, you might even see more light radiating off of the skin, as just an example of how we're picking up energy. So it is a difficult period in the sense that we can feel the change, but we're not necessarily seeing the change yet. And so it can be easy to dismiss it and say it's not actually happening. It is. It is because we are literally in that prophetic window that has been talked about by so many ancient civilizations. There's so much proof and energy coming to the surface now that we are in the time of the shift. It's just something that is hard to sense with your physical senses, but with your extrasensory senses, it's very easy to understand that we're here. So the message from the team right now is all about how you are processing your next moves. One of the things that is going to help us feel more in alignment and less stressed out and less overwhelmed and less reactive or triggered rather, is how we are assessing information and our own next moves. And so the team is reminding us that most of us have been trained to access what's the move I make through the mind, and specifically through the left hemisphere. We're trying to access higher knowledge or discernment through our critically thinking left hemisphere, which only has the database of knowledge of your lived experience. It cannot access future information. It can only access what has been lived and understood and recorded for itself. And a lot of us learn to make decisions, and this is called past-oriented thinking, where we are only accessing our lived experience record, aka our past, and we're basing future decisions off of our past experience. So if in the past I experienced this negative result, I can therefore determine that the likely outcome to the same choice is this same negative result. What that does to us is it keeps us in a pattern of stress and even repeating the mistakes of the past. Either we repeat it, or we are afraid to move forward or afraid to take a chance because based on another chance we took, we might have had a negative outcome. So we're not considering that the variables are different. We are only considering our own personal experience and the outcomes. And we what it does is for us is it keeps us in a tight parameter, repeating the same behaviors, because based on previous information and previous experience, I can expect this. And so therefore, my zone of safety, my zone of comfort, my zone of trust is limited to this box of information that I already have. This is not discernment. This is simply pulling from the past. And you'll notice that if that's all that you pull from, it tends to box you in. It tends to create the mental limits that we experience, where we have these limiting beliefs, we have chronic patterns of behavior that we get very fixed when we're in the left hemisphere, because it is more of a fixed state. It's working with data and it's working with the only the physical realm. That's what it can deal with, because it needs to see it, touch it, hear it, taste it, smell it in order to understand it. It cannot imagine past that. There's no imagination here, which we've been taught is that's the right place to be. That's where you're going to get the most solid information. However, if you are trying to create change or growth or expansion in your life, this type of thinking is going to create nothing but a limit, because it cannot picture something other than what has been, which means we need to actually switch to our right hemisphere. And I think it's so interesting. My team's always said we were given a whole brain for a reason. So if we're only hanging out in one side or the other, we're not fully using our brain. And when they say we're not using more than, let's say, 7 to 10% of our brain, they base that off of people who were stuck in their right hemisphere, right? They're stuck in the analytical side that is controlled by their consciousness. The left hemisphere of our brain is controlled by our conscious awareness. Well, if we were to look at what's available to us, if I were to show it to you in a pictorial form, I would show you an iceberg. And the tip of the iceberg above the water would represent your conscious mind. That would represent your left hemisphere. And even just telling you that helps you understand that in the right hemisphere is everything under the water. And it can go quite deep, right? And then we get into, we're in conscious mind, then that's subconscious mind, and then we can even get down into supraconscious mind. In the tarot, how they depicted this was the card called the Lovers. And it's so tricky because it's like when people look at the tarot cards, oftentimes they take them at face value. And that was sort of meant to be a misdirect in a way. When those came out, it was a way of sort of hiding the knowledge right in front of your face. The Lovers card actually shows you the relationship of the mind and what discernment looks like and what it looks like to use your whole mind. All right, so when we're looking at this card right here, the Lovers, what we're going to see is the male, the female, and we see this angel up here. And they actually represent how the mind works. The male entity represents the conscious mind. So in the tarot, in this particular deck, Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the male always represents our conscious mind. The female over here represents the subconscious mind. And whenever you see an entity that's like an angel, it represents the superconscious mind or the higher self. And this card actually shows you what discernment really looks like when you're really practicing discernment. What it shows is the male, the conscious mind, looks to the subconscious mind, who looks to the higher self. So true discernment is to go inward and to ask the subconscious mind to retrieve the information, and the subconscious mind will go in the picture or the idea of an iceberg. Imagine what it looks like is that tip of the iceberg above the water, representing your conscious mind, is now deferring to the subconscious mind, which is the larger part of the mind that would represent the part under the water. That part goes even deeper. The subconscious mind now defers to the ice shelf it's connected to, which would represent the superconscious mind, where all minds are connected. So the deepest truth is we have to go inward to get it. So if we stop and only assess a situation from our conscious mind, what we are consciously connected to, then we're hanging out in our left hemisphere and we're not going any deeper. And if you think of the iceberg metaphor, it's a pretty shallow depth, right? We're not getting a lot of information. We are not able to discern because we're not activating more of our brain. When we want an answer, when we want to know how to move forward, or if it's safe, or if you could trust something, you actually need to go inward. So that requires us to move to the right hemisphere. Well, what moves us to the right hemisphere? Meditation, contemplation, right? Slowing down and holding the question allows us to move into our right hemisphere. And if we sit with it and hold it long enough, we will take it down to the depth of our higher self, our super consciousness, that consciousness that connects us to all information that exists. When we take time to gather information from that level, then we're going to gather the truth, whatever that is. We're going to gather the depth of the truth and be able to utilize the information that would be for your highest good, allowing you to take that all the way back up into your conscious mind. And when we're doing that, we are using the whole brain, right? We're using all three parts. So isn't it interesting? It's like you can think of it like this. You're using your left hemisphere, conscious mind, right hemisphere, subconscious mind, and your heart, which is your superconscious mind. Don't forget, we have brain cells. We have neurological cells in our heart, and our heart actually has a stronger connection to the brain than the brain to the heart. This is amazing. So it shows you how to use your whole mind. So the message from the team is, it's really a time to practice discernment. And you've got to, if you want to move forward in the most alignment, if you want to move forward to levels where the ease and grace and the miracles I talked about last week exist, then you want to be practicing the whole mind technique, where it's left, right, and heart. And remember, the left looks to the right looks to the heart. And then the information comes from the heart through the right and into the left. And then we can take action. What fear does to us, when they're activating fear, when they're telling you scary things and getting you upset and making you think the end of the world is coming, that is a tactic that is done on purpose to keep you out of your whole mind. When you are in fear, you don't need to stop and talk to God, right? You want to run or fight. You want to flee, fight, freeze, fawn. You want to get out of there. And you cannot. It's like what happens is almost like, imagine a steel door coming down between your two hemispheres, trapping you in the left. And the left is where you're going to deal with what's happening right in front of you. Everything tactile is going to be there. Your conscious mind is there. It's not going to be giving you access to the subconscious mind and beyond, because in order to do that, you must be able to relax. Your nervous system has to be regulated. So what better way to keep you from accessing the higher truth and the higher wisdom and the higher timeline than to keep you afraid? And when we're in fear, we do not have discernment unless you can practice critical thinking, which is questioning while you are in a heightened state. Most of us can't do it. In fact, critical thinking is one of the things that gets shut off when we're in a state of fear. So when we're going through this time, and we're going through the great split now, the two-world split that's talked about, I truly believe we're going through it now. We've been going through it, and it's just going to intensify and look more and more divided as we go. And I want to be clear that this divide has nothing to do with political views, nothing to do with religious views. It has everything to do with how connected or disconnected you feel from everything, right? So the more you're practicing your sense of connection to everything, the more you're on the higher positive service to others timeline. Doesn't matter. Connection is not the same as agreement. Connection is connection. It doesn't matter if we're on the same page on a certain topic or not. Do you feel connected? If you feel that connection, you're already on this part of the split that's moving upwards. There are people who are showing you what the other side of the split looks like. There are people who are turning to violence. They're calling for They're calling for violence to others, and they're practicing violence against others. And really what it comes down to is they simply see a separation. They stop seeing other people as connected to them or having the same value as them, or even worthy of life. That's the split that we're seeing. And the thing is, the closer and closer we get to this big moment where we're making this incredible leap, that split intensifies, and it's by design. And I know that some people see it and they worry and they go, oh my God, if it's supposed to be so good, why does it look so bad? But what we're actually able to do is witness the two worlds at once. You can witness the two worlds at once if your own personal world feels fine, but you're looking out there and you're like, this is a dumpster fire, right? But your own world, there's like peace and ease and grace, and it feels better. And you're like, how can these two things be true? How can it be, I feel ease and grace and better, and yet it looks worse and worse? That's the two world split. And rather than trying to determine who's doing what where, it's really now about the choices that we're making. They've always counted, but they really do count now. When the confusion is higher, the choices seem to count a little bit more. So with that, let's go into the karma cards and see if it can add to this conversation. If you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message for this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with your beautiful intuition and feel what is the guidance that's best for you. Are you looking for action related guidance, outcome related guidance, or do you want both? You can always choose both. And while you are choosing, the timing for this reading is April 9th through April 16th. Okay, so the flavor of this reading, we've got Pluto. Pluto's a hard one to get, but Pluto is like, let's cut the crap and get down to the truth. So Pluto is the one of the tough love planets, I would say. It's seen as like a malefic planet, but I just see it as tough love. It's not going to sugarcoat it for you. It's going to poke at the sore and tell you that this hurt is causing the problem. In the sign of Aries, which is sort of another tough love. It's a little bit, Aries is very direct, right? And Aries and Pluto, even though Pluto does not rule Aries, Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars used to rule Scorpio, which is now ruled by Pluto. So you can see there's a little bit of a connection there. It's just another one of these things where direct, and I don't want to waste time. Let's get to the heart of it. Now, in the 9th house of mental expansion, this one's ruled by Jupiter and Sagittarius. So this one is like the benefic, right? This is going to grow you. This is going to open your mind. It's going to show you something. So the best way to create the growth is just to, again, kind of cut the crap and get right into it. But talking about the energy of conflict, right? Pluto, I told you, is sort of in conflict with this moon energy, this partnership energy. So I get that there's this looking at, what are you doing? How are you behaving? Are you behaving in a way that is in alignment with you, that's going to grow you, or are you ignoring it? This week seems like we might confront something. Right, so let's take a look. Spiritual action at this time: resurrect your willpower as if it came from God. All right, so it does come from God. So just taking it to that seriousness level. But what I'm getting here is, especially in regards to the proper discernment, is it's time for us to get a hold of it. Just like the story I told you about the conflict style that I used to approach it with. The only one who could change that scenario is me. And the only way I could have done it is to become conscious and aware and actually make a statement saying, I don't like this. I don't like that I come to a conflict to fight rather than to resolve. I want to change that behavior, right? And it's humbling sometimes to see that. And it's definitely humbling to tell other people that you see that in yourself. this is sort of one of those moments where, again, recognizing that if you want something to change, it's going to start with you. Mental action at this time, get to the heart of what you think you know about the philosophies and laws involved. Whether it's conflict or discernment, I think the first step here is to really ask yourself the question, how do I define this? What does it mean to me? That's going to help you get down to any behavioral patterns or things that you need to see, right? How do I define this? And oftentimes I think we protect ourselves from looking at ourselves because that's just something the ego does. The ego likes it when we're a little bit out of control because then the ego's in control. So it's not willing to give that up readily. Also, often our patterns of behavior or ways of thinking, especially around things like conflict and discernment, are formed at a younger age where our concept of what was going on is very different than who we are as an adult, which is why symbolically in like astrology, we have these periods of time that are designed for reflection. Half of the year in astrology, planets are in retrograde, like multiple planets, which means half of the time we're being asked to reflect and review and look at things. Now, we don't always do that for ourselves, but if we start to tune in and become more aware, we recognize that these are opportunities and we stop looking at it as something that's getting in our way and rather, oh, it's time for me to look at this, which allows us to grow and move forward. Physical action at this time, do or die. You must do it in your own way and do it in a big way. Okay, there's drama here, but that's because of Pluto and Aries. So there's this like drama. But the point being is like there is no other time to look at this stuff. Time to look at it now. I keep getting that we're so close to this big shift. And I can't give you a time frame because time frames don't work. It's based on us. It's based on our readiness to do this shift. But what I can say is that time is running out for you to like put this off, right? Working on yourself, working on where you need to open your heart, working on where you attached, working on becoming more self-aware about certain behaviors and especially how we relate to each other. That is the big one. Relationship to one another is probably the biggest thing we're here for. And the more that I understand from a spiritual perspective, it's like the only thing we're here doing. Everything else is just part of the game. It's partly to act as a mirror for us, to see ourselves, right? Other things. Yes, we have things that we have to do here. We've got to focus on surviving. We got to focus on like how we're going to give ourselves a sense of purpose and stuff. But even all of that is secondary to our relationships and how we are treating each other. The one thing we get to take with us when we pass over, whenever that is the relationship. That is it. Everything else, the big business that you build, all the money you accumulate, all the things that you acquire, all the vacations you want, gone. You know, it's a concept after that. It's not that it doesn't have resonance for you. It's just a concept. But the relationships, that's why we keep doing it over and over, because we're trying to remember, oh yeah, how I relate to another. This is the big thing. And even as I say that, my team's like, ka-ching. Yeah, it's the big thing, is the relationships. So after this eclipse is over, where big changes happen, we're being asked to review what we value, especially when it comes to relationships, and to get really clear on it, and to even look at what do you like when it comes to conflict? What do you like when everything isn't so happy, joy? What do you like when there's a really big elephant in the room that represents disagreement, right? Or conflict? What do you like when that's there? That's the thing for us to understand. That's the thing for us to get clear on. Do it in your own way and do it in a big way, because the timer is quickly coming to its final point. And again, When? I can't tell you when. Only that you're going to get this message more and more as we get closer and as we split, right? As there's this split in energy, going to be those who really focus on relationship and feeling connected. Now, how do you feel connected to someone who doesn't want to connect with you? That's something for you to sit with, but it can be done. And that is the job, right? So either choose connection or choose separation, but those are the two main paths now. All right, now let's take a look at outcomes for Pluto in Aries in the 9th house of mental expansion. Spiritual outcome at this time, the need for control of energies to meet the challenge of spiritual values. Again, they show me the camera, and I've mentioned this before, so a camera lens can focus on the subject or the background, but it can't focus on both. So you can either focus on yourself and what's going on in here, or the rest of the world and other people, but you can't focus on both. And when you unfocus on yourself and focus on the outside world, you go out of control. So there's two ways I can see this control energy coming up. One, I need to get control of what's going on, and I need to recognize my own patterns, right? So I can meet the energy of my spiritual values. I got to see it. Or I don't like how you're behaving, and you need to change your behavior, right? Like I need this other person to change, or these people to change, so that I can find peace. One of the two is really going to kick in. I'm hoping the one that kicks in, because the one that serves you more is the one where I got to look at myself. So I'm hoping that that's what happens for us. If we go out of focus on ourselves and focus on the outside world, it's going to be very frustrating, and it's going to feel harder. You're going to want to separate more because you're not going to be able to control it. The circus is circusing right now. Mental outcome at this time, an obsession with your desires regarding long-range thinking or travels. I can see what they're saying here. They're talking about how, because this is hard, it's either hard to look at this or hard to control that, right? There's sort of a pain either direction. So if I look at myself and I really look at my own behavior, I might hit some pain points there. And if I'm looking out there and like stop and trying to control that, I'm definitely going to feel pain out there. So where does the brain go when it can't really be here? It wants to go off into a future point where at some undetermined time things get better, and I'm waiting for that. Now we're keeping ourselves in a holding pattern because I can't find peace right now, because I don't want to be here looking at this, and I can't stand looking at that. So I have to project myself really far. So the obsession with, in the future, when this is over, it'll be, whether it's on the higher timeline in the new earth, or when things change in the external world, or it's just wanting to escape, wanting to go where you believe it feels better is going to be the other option. The work is looking at ourselves and dealing with whatever pain point is there that causes us to look or act a certain way, right? Behave a certain way. That might be too painful. Looking outside and seeing what's going on and all the variation it's showing you might be too painful. So the other option is I want to project myself to the dream place, to where I desire to be, what I want to experience. And that's okay to do that from time to time. This is talking about an obsession with it. So a desire to escape is strong right now, which again, if you just recognize that the pain of looking, it's a short-term pain. Not as bad as we think it is. Could it make you cry? Yes. Can it make you frustrated? Yes. Can it make you want to rage, scream into a pillow? Sure. All of those could happen, but it's a shorter term discomfort than we think it is. And it gets easier once we look at it once. Once we look at it once and we see what's going on, coming back to it gets easier and easier. And someday you'll be able to just admit it to people. Yep, that's where I go, or I used to go, or I'm trying not to go, right? But in this period of time, notice if there's a desire to just escape it completely. Physical outcome at this time, a power struggle resulting from the honesty and strength of what is to be shared. Like I said, when we first look at this pattern and we acknowledge it, whatever it is, whether it's that you hide and avoid conflict and just disappear off the planet and never let anyone have their say with you because you don't want to face them, or whether you're like, let's bring it, bitch, like like some people, and are like, I will not leave until I have conquered all, right? Those are obviously extreme ends, but if you're somewhere in there, the first time you admit that to yourself and even share it, maybe if you're really brave, share it with the person that you feel conflict with, there's going to be this desire to justify it. That's the power struggle. And there is some justification to it. Perhaps in the past, when having conflict, you found that you felt safer fighting it, or you felt safer running from it, or fill in the blank. That's going to come up. And that's part of the ego saying, hey, look, there's a reason for this and it's got to stay here because this works for us. Remember, when we feel out of control, the ego is in control. So what I see is that we might get honest with ourselves, and that is really brave. And I just want to commend you for doing it, because it's not easy, but it's probably some of the most beautiful work you will do for yourself. When we get honest with ourselves about what's going on, there's a need to justify it, and there might be a need to continue the pattern. Like, this works for me. Being honest again, being sort of a warrior and like, I'm here for blood, worked for me, because no one wants to fight with a person who likes to fight, right? No one, I won, quote unquote, won a lot of fights that way, because I would just keep swinging until the other person gives up. And I mean metaphorically, like my metaphorical sword, words, right? Just drama, just let that come out and sort of wear people out. And that works when you want to win. It is not the best way to be in relationship with each other, especially if with the ultimate end goal with that relationship on a broader scale is harmony. Well, you are not serving harmony if that's your approach, right? But like I said, the struggle is between seeing it, justifying it, and kind of wanting to continue because it works for you. If your approach is to run away when you realize you've done some shit and that someone's got a beef with you and you just ghost them and disappear, well then, sure, that works for you. You never have to deal with the conflict, but that doesn't mean you're creating harmony in the relationship, and you're probably in that scenario losing people, because if you're not giving them the ground to share their emotions, if you run away before they can share with you how you're impacting them, then most healthy people are not going to put up with that. They're just going to be like, okay, well, I'm done then, right? So it's a tricky time. This is whenever Pluto shows up, we know we got a little turbulence here. It's like being on an airplane and we're going through a pocket of turbulence. This doesn't show me, though, that things are bad. What it shows me is that this is a deeper point, that we're going to have to look, we're going to have to engage if we want to move forward into the bliss and harmony we seek with others. This work is necessary. And if you're just initially looking at it, it's not going to feel great. If you're reviewing it, you've already looked at it and you're like, how's my progress so far? That's probably going to feel better. Remember, it's connecting you to your spiritual values. So what you're doing here is ultimately for your highest good. And so even if it's like, I don't want to go there this week, trust that it's for your highest good, and it's actually going to make things easier and more harmonious and keep you on that higher timeline. So with that, I am sending you so much love. Mwah. I know you can do this, and I will see you next week.